Hello, how are you doing? So, can you write in the chat how are you doing? How are you feeling today? You know, there are several types how you can say how the phrase how are you doing? Like you can say how are you doing, the usual one, the general one. Then you can say how is it going? What's up? And much more. Like in English language, the conversational phrases have this quite big range of variety. So each time that you meet someone, you can say, how are you doing? How is it going? What's up? And so on. So, can you answer this question? How are you doing? Is everything fine in your life? Hello, Daria. Hello, Victoria. Hello, Yulia. I'm fine. Good. Well, I can see no more answers, but still, I hope that you're doing fine. I'm fine too, thanks. Also, if you answer these questions like how are you doing, how is it going, or what's up, like firstly, how are you doing and how is it going? There are several types how you can answer to this question. Like I'm fine, that's the usual one. Then not bad, I'm great. So these are some types of variety, like how you can answer to these questions, how are you doing? But pay attention, if you answer the question what's up, you have to say not much. So the phrase what's up, that means like do you have something new in your life? Some new information in your life? So to this question, you have to answer like not much. So I have not much information. Or if you have a lot of changes in your life, so of course you can keep going on and describing like what changed in your life, what you have. Like maybe you moved your house, maybe you got married, maybe you passed the exams and so on. I'm amazing. Great. Well, I'll try to speak a little bit slower so you will understand me, kid. So today we'll talk about, first of all, we'll look at the grammar at the third conditional. So perhaps you know what's that, you've got acquainted with that thing, like the zero conditional, first conditional, second conditional, and the third one. So today we'll pay attention to the third conditional. Also, we'll learn some vocabulary. We'll look at some vocabulary tasks, and the texts will be called like working with the elderly and taking a gap year. So first of all, let's start with the third conditional. And while I'm reading these sentences and while I'm just trying to describe these sentences, I would like you to write in the chat, what do you know about third conditional? What is that? Well, can you hear me well? Well, I hope so, because some people say that they cannot hear me still. So, what do you know about third conditional? Please write in the chat some information about this thing. And you can look at these sentences. So, if she hadn't been silly in class, she wouldn't have got told off. So you can see here that if she hadn't been, that's the negative form. Like if she had not been silly in class, she would not have got told off. So here you can see this negative form. The second sentence, well, I can see that you have some interruption here, the pluses and minuses, and that can make it not clear for you, but still let me read it for you and you will understand. If they had done their homework, they wouldn't have got punished. if they had done, they wouldn't have got punished. So the first part of this sentence is the positive one, right? If he had done his homework. And the second part is the negative one. They would not have got lost. Also pay attention to the structure that you have, like had plus the third form, right? Then would have plus the third form of the irregular verbs, the past participle, or the ed ending when we have the regular verb. And the third sentence that you have here, if he had behaved well, he would have been chosen for the school play. Again, you have had behaved, he would have been chosen. Well, I can see some of the answers here. We use it when we speak about something. Well, that's it. Is it possible result? The conditional, this is unreal. Well, yes, guys, you're right. So here we talk about this unreal situation in the past. So you know that in English we have several types of conditional. Well, I will not talk about zero conditional. It's quite clear. It's about this general thing that always happen, and that is not changed, right? The first conditional, it's when you talk about present or future situations, real ones. Second conditional, it's about unreal present situations. And third conditional, this is used when you talk about unreal past situations. So again, pay attention to this. If you have third conditional, then you have the unreal past situation. If she hadn't been still in class yesterday, for example, she wouldn't have got told. Again, in the past, that happened in the past. If they had done their homework in the past, they wouldn't have got punished again in the past. If he had behaved well in the past, he wouldn't have been chosen for the school play again in the past. But the thing is that happened, and that is unreal situation, so unreal past situation. So let's look here, and we again have the same sentences. Let's move on just with the slides, and you have the same sentences, but here your task is to answer to these questions. If she hadn't been silly in class, she wouldn't have got told off. So was she silly in class? What do you think? And did she get told off? You have here both negative situations, like if she hadn't been silly, she wouldn't have got told off. So was she silly in class? And did she get told off? Yes and yes, you're right, Daria. Yes, that's it. So was she silly in class? Yes, she was. Did she get told off? Yes, she was. It was the past situations. The second situation that you have, if they had done their homework, they wouldn't have got punished. So did they do their homework and did they get punished? What do you think? So Victoria says first yes, and the second yes too. Well, let's see. Did they do their homework? No. If they had done their homework, like that's the past situation, right? Did they get punished? Yes. They didn't do their homework, and that is why they got punished. So this is the unreal past situation. If she had visited London, would she have visited Big Ben? So did she visit London, and did she visit Big Ben? If she had visited London in the past, like if she had this possibility to visit London, would she have visited Big Ben? No and no, you're right. So she didn't visit London, she didn't have that opportunity, and that is why, that's the consequence why she didn't visit Big Ben. So that's right. Well done, guys. Let's move on. Here you have again the same sentences, but now pay attention to the structure you have here. If she hadn't been silly in class, comma, she wouldn't have got told off. So here you have this structure, this if clause and then would clause, right? So if clause, if you start the sentence with the if clause, then you have to put comma after it. So let's call would clause the main one, so main clause. If you have the sentence that starts with if clause, like if she hadn't been silly in class, then you have to put comma after it. So if she hadn't been silly in class, comma, she wouldn't have got told off. But the situation when you have a little bit different sentence, when you start with the main clause and then you continue with the if clause, you do not have to put comma after the first part. So she wouldn't have got told off if she hadn't been silly in class. Here you have the same sentence, just the same. It doesn't have any changes in it. You can see that. Also, you have this change in the structure, right? So firstly you have would clause and after it you have if clause. And that is why the comma disappeared. You do not have comma if you start with the main one. So the same happens with the next situation, with the next sentence. I'm sorry about the presentation. Something happened with it and it's just moved. So the second sentence. If they had done their homework, they wouldn't have got punished. They wouldn't have got punished if they had done their homework. So again, you have if clause. After it, you put comma. And then you continue with the main clause, like would have got punished. If you start the sentence with would, so with the main clause, after it you use if clause without using any comma. So pay attention to this structure. It's quite important when you will write your when you have this opportunity to write your exam, like in the future you have that. Pay attention to these commas and pay attention to the clauses you have. And the third sentence, if she had visited London, comma, would she have visited Big Ben? So again, the same thing. If you start the sentence with the main clause, like would she have visited Big Ben, then you do not have to put comma after it. But you say like if she had visited London without any comma, right? So pay attention to this structure. Now look at these sentences. Can you identify what's the mistake here? In the first one, what had happened if I hadn't been here? So can you please write down what is the mistake in the first question? What had happened if I hadn't been here? We've talked about the structure, about third conditional structure a few seconds ago. And now, can you identify the mistake in the first question? Can you write that down? What would have happened? Well, you're right. Yes, Victoria and OK Music. Sorry, I do not know your name, so can you please write that down in chat? So you both are right about this. So the first part of the sentence has a mistake. As far as you have main clause at the beginning, what would have happened if I hadn't been here? So this question, you start with the main clause, right? So what would have happened if I hadn't been here? Pay attention to this structure. After if clause, you have to use past perfect tense, right? If I hadn't been here, if I hadn't been there, sorry. So after if clause, you have to use past perfect tense. And in the main clause, the structure doesn't change. So would plus have plus the third form of the irregular verbs, or it is called past participle, or the ending ed to the regular verb if you have the irregular one. So what would have happened if I hadn't been there? What about the second sentence that you have? If I would have seen him, comma, I would have said hello. If I would have seen him, I would have said hello. So what's the mistake here? If I had seen him, I would have said hello. If I had seen. Well, that's right. In the first part, as far as you start with if clause, then you have to use past perfect tense. If plus past perfect tense. If I had seen him. So if plus past perfect had plus the third form of the irregular verbs or past participle. If I had seen him, comma, then you can see that you use here comma after the if clause. Again, pay attention to the structure. I would have said hello. So I would have said hello. Well done, guys. Let's move on to the text you have here with the usage of the third conditional. So, of course, it's not just the rule that you have to learn and just remember the second moment. So, third conditional is used in everyday life, like Englishmen or like American people, they all use this third conditional in their everyday life. So let's read this text and you'll see how it is used in action. So language in action. I had a terrible day today. First of all, I was late. I told the teacher that if my bike hadn't broken, I wouldn't have been late, but she wasn't pleased. Then I got into trouble again for talking. But if I hadn't been late, I wouldn't have been asking my friend what to do. In the afternoon, I walked home with a friend and I got into trouble with a policeman. But I wouldn't have been told off if I hadn't been walking where I shouldn't. Tomorrow, I'll take the bus. So pay attention to the structure of these sentences. So here you have this text with the usage of the third conditional. And here you have these unreal past situations. Like firstly, this girl, well, she got in trouble because of the situations that happened in her life. And if the situations hadn't happened in your life, like a few days ago, like she wouldn't have got in trouble because of them. So you can see now how it is used in our life and how third conditional can be used in writing a text, for example. So perhaps in writing, when you will have this writing task during the examination, you may use third conditional, and this will give you some points. So it's a great thing for using third conditional tense in our life when we talk about unreal past situations. So now let's look at the rules, and for you that's a great thing to remember the rules. Perhaps that will help you somehow in your understanding of the third conditional tense. So first of all, let's revise. We use third conditional to talk about unreal situations in the past and their imagined results. The third conditional has two parts or clauses. We usually make the third conditional like this: if clause, if past plus past perfect. That means like past perfect, I think you know what's that, but still let me remind you. So past perfect is the past tense, right? And it is constructed as have in the past form, like had, and the main verb in the third form of the irregular verbs, past participle, or the ed ending to the irregular verb. So if plus had plus if she had asked me. And the main clause after it, would plus have plus the past participle. If she had asked me, I would have told her. So try to remember these rules, the structure of the third conditional, because it's quite important. So if plus past perfect, then comma, and would have plus the third form past participle. We can change the order of the two clauses if we want to. As far as we've discussed it already, so pay attention, let's revise this thing once again. If I'd heard the alarm clock, comma, I wouldn't have been late. But you can change this, you can change the parts, the position of these parts in the sentence, right? And that will be used without comma. I wouldn't have been late if I'd heard the alarm clock. So in the second sentence, you do not have any comma because of the position of the clauses. Like let's look at the second sentence. I wouldn't have been late. You start with the main clause. After it, you use the if clause, and that is why you use no comma. If you start with if clause, then you use comma, and then you continue with the main clause. So that's it about the rules. I hope that's clear. And if you have any questions concerning the rules, you can write that in chat. I will try to answer them. And this task is for you. I would like you to write in the chat the continuing of these sentences. What if, and then you have some of the situations. If I'd been born an animal, you continue. If my family had moved abroad when I was a child. If I had been born a different nationality. If I'd been a child prodigy. If I'd known at 10 what I know now. If I'd been born into a famous family. So you can write the main clause to all of these sentences, and I will be very grateful if you do that. But you can also choose one of them and write the continuing of the ones you've chosen. So just try to choose one, or maybe write the answers to all of them. Well, while you're writing, I'll try to continue some of the sentences by my own. So if I had been born an animal, I would have been a cat, perhaps. Or if I had been born a different nationality, I would have been, well, like a Ukrainian, I suppose. Well, I like my country, so I wouldn't like to be a different nationality. If I had been born a different nationality, I would have been maybe only an English woman. So a Ukrainian or an English woman. So what about you? If my family had moved abroad when I was the child, I would have known English better. That's wonderful. What about the others? If my family had moved abroad when I was a child, I would have been abroad. That's great. So what about the other sentences that you have here? So, okay, that's good about abroad, about moving abroad. What about the other sentences? If I had been born an animal. So, what type of animal would you like to be? So, I told you that if I'd been born an animal, perhaps I would have been a cat, lion, or any other animal connected to the family of cats. So, what about you? Well, you can continue the last one. Also, it's quite easy. If I'd been born into a famous family, I would have become a popular singer. So, what about you? How can you continue these sentences? Try to think, make up your sentences. That's quite easy. And that's a thing for you to train your creative mind, you know. So, try to think of the continuing of these sentences. Try to imagine anything. It's quite easy and it's a great game, you know. Try to think creative. If I'd been born an animal, I would have had 4 paws. Quite logical. Well, that's wonderful, yeah. What about the other things? If I had been born into a famous family, I would have had more opportunity. Oh, well, that is right. Yes, if I had been born into a famous family, I would have had more opportunities, right? So one thing that you have to pay attention here is that if you talk about more, about something that is like in a big quantity, right? In a big amount of something. So you have to use this plurality, not singularity. Like opportunity is the one thing. It's like a only singular word. And talking about like many of something, right? So that's plurality, and you have to use es ending. So I would have had more opportunities, more opportunities. Okay. If I'd known at 10 what I know now, I would have learned English better then. Wonderful. Hmm. What about the fourth sentence? Like, I suppose you would like to skip this sentence, but still, I would like you to complete it. If I'd been a child prodigy. So, first of all, do you know the meaning of this word, child prodigy? What's that? Well, I can give you a tip that's quite a talented person, quite a talented child, you know, a child that knows a lot more than all the children know. Genius. Well, you're right, yes. Victoria, that's it. So I see no more answers here. So you can think of this easy way to express yourself. Like, you know, you can just continue with two words, with two words, and that will give you this creativity. You will just think of that, you will imagine anything, and you'll have this link of imagination, and you will start thinking of one sentence, then the next one. So be creative, try to think and imagine anything, and write it down in a chat. So if I'd been a child prodigy, I would have earned a lot of money. Wonderful, yeah, good. hmm So while you think of more answers, let's also pay attention to the blue sentence. If I'd known at 10 what I know now, I would have become a programmer. I don't know. So if I'd known at 10 what I know now, I would have earned a lot of money, as well as you said. So that's the things. That's how you can continue just using simple words. So I'd like you to continue more of these sentences. You haven't used some of the sentences, like you haven't used the third sentence, if I'd been born a different nationality. Oh, okay, music says that if I had born a different nationality, I would have thought about other things. Well, you would have had this different culture and understanding of cultures. That's it. Wonderful. Okay. So then let's move on to the next task. And here again, you have to think of your answers. You have to make up the sentences. And you have the words here, like break the law, get told off. Like you, sometimes you have the words like angry, score, and sometimes you have the phrases, like one phrase that you can use in your sentence. Break the law, get told off, do badly, well. You can mix that. You can make one sentence using some of the words, like three phrases or three words in your sentence from this box. So, invite, chocolate, not to win. You can mix that. You can link these sentences and these words and make your own sentence. Angry, score, mobile phone, prison, hang out, get into trouble, buy, holiday, and hot. So, can you try to make up your sentences using the phrases that you have here? Link them, make this mix of words and mix of phrases to make up your own logical sentence. For example, while I think I can give you a tip how to construct such sentences. If I hadn't broken the law, I wouldn't have got told off. And again, you can make a very similar sentence. If I hadn't done badly at school, I wouldn't have got told off. So what about you? I'd like to read your sentences. If I had had chocolate, I would have invited someone to coffee. Well, it's better to say I would have invited someone for a cup of coffee. Okay, that's it. What about the others? Be active, please. So express yourself. Try to make up your sentences. Imagine anything. As far as you wouldn't have been, if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter right now because it's just for you to learn and to revise the material that you already know. So be active. Try to make your sentences and submit it to the chat. If I hadn't broken the law, I wouldn't have got. So Victoria, you made a mistake as far as you have would plus have plus the third form past participle, right? So if I hadn't broken the law, I wouldn't have got to prison, right? So I wouldn't have got to prison, or you can say also I wouldn't have been imprisoned. So the same meaning will be here. If I hadn't been angry, I wouldn't have got into trouble. Well done, Mikhailo. Yeah, that's it. So more questions, please. More sentences, please. Write down, use your imagination. Just create anything. Make up your sentences. Sometimes that's just this task can be called a little bit difficult as far as some people call that brainstorming. When you have to think of something, you have to imagine anything, and it can be quite difficult. So let's brainstorm your mind. If I had used third conditional more, I would have spoken better. Well, wonderful. Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose you know the meaning of the phrase hang out. It's when you party, when you dance, and you have this like night party or go to the club somewhere. It means hang out. If I had scored my previous record, I would have bought a new mobile phone. Hmm. Okay, good. If I had been invited, I would have hung out with my friends. Wonderful, yeah, good. If I had been angry now, I would have not seen this video. Well, perhaps. Okay, good. So about the structure, you have no more mistakes here. It's quite wonderful. So again, let's revise. If you use the third conditional in your speech, you have to follow this definite structure. If clause plus past perfect tense. Then use comma and you use the main clause, which is constructed as follows. So would plus have plus past participle, right? This third form of the irregular verbs, or the ending ed if the verb is regular, like invited. I would have invited someone, right? But if you use the irregular verb like be, I would have been. So this is a structure of the normal third conditional sentence. If you want also to change the position of the clauses, like firstly you start with main clause, you do not have to use comma in your sentence. Well, I hope that's clear. If you have more questions, write that in a chat, I'll try to answer. And we are moving further. Here we are moving to the vocabulary task. And you can see on your screen this text with some of the missing words. Like you have here the gaps, you have 8 gaps. And on the right side, you have the table with the words that you have to fill the gaps with. Let's start reading this text. And while I'm reading that, your task is to be a little bit faster than me and write the answer to the gaps that I will read next. So firstly, pay attention to these lines. Like the first gap that you have here is the first line, like the first A, parts, B, duties, C, posts, and D, places. And you have to choose only one word out of these 4. Let's start. Working with the elderly. Have you been at a loose end since school broke up for the summer? Why not take part in a volunteer program working with the elderly? The programs available across the UK are as varied as the that volunteers may be asked to undertake. So in the first gap, you have to use parts, duties, posts, or places. The programs available across the UK are as varied as the parts, as the duties, as the posts, or as the places that volunteer may be asked to undertake. Well, while you're thinking, I'll also explain one phrase that may be a little bit difficult for understanding. Have you ever been in the loose end since school broke up for the summer? So break up, that's the phrasal verb, which means start. So when you have this starting of the holidays after school. So what about the first gap? I see duties, and not sure. Let's see. The duties, of course. The programs available across the UK are as varied as the duties that volunteer may be asked to undertake. Good. So the second gap, going, being, getting, or putting on in years can create certain difficulties, and the elderly often have specific age-related problems. So what do you have here? Going on in years, being on in years, getting on in years, or putting on in years can create certain difficulties. And the elderly often have specific age-related problems. So you can see one answer, putting. Putting on in years. What about the others? What do you think? Being. Are you sure? The right answer is getting on. Get on, right? So you have here getting on in years can create certain difficulties. So you were not right about that. The right answer is get on, getting on in years. The phrasal verb put on has a different meaning. Put on means to wear anything, right? To wear a hat, to wear clothes. So that means put something on, put something on you. Go on, this phrasal verb means to continue doing something, right? Go on, continue. And the right answer here is get on. It's to gain, right? To gain something. Get on in years can create certain difficulties. What about the third gap? However, despite, as, while, some elderly people may require assistance with tasks like dressing, washing, and feeding themselves, others will have less needs. So what about the third gap? I have one answer here, however. What about the others? What do you think? While, however, while, basic. What basic? Oh, you answered the fourth gap. Okay, so let's see what you have in the third one. So the third is while. While some elderly people may require assistance. Well, Mikhail, you're right about while, and Victoria, you made a mistake here with the word however. One thing that you have to remember is when you use the word however, you have to put commas with this word. So, however, mostly it is used with commas on both sides if you have this word in the middle of the sentence. If the sentence just starts with the word however, then you have to use comma after it. So, however, comma, like however, comma, some people like do something, right? And if you do not have this comma in the sentence, that's why you have to use another word. And the most appropriate here is while. While some elderly people may require assistance with tasks. So what about the fourth gap? Require assistance with main tasks, central tasks, basic tasks, or chief tasks. That is right, yes. So with basic tasks like dressing, washing, and feeding themselves, others will have less demanding needs, tough needs, heavy needs, or hard needs. What about the fifth gap? Washing with basic tasks like dressing, washing, and feeding themselves, others will have less needs. So you say demanding or hard? Demanding, let's see. The right answer is demanding. So others will have less demanding needs. Well, I hope that you know what the word demanding means. It's when you have to do something and like your body requires that, so it's like demand. And you some needs, like mostly when you talk about needs, the word demanding is the most appropriate one. Heavy, tough, and hard. Well, it is not so appropriate here. So demanding is the right answer, just with the translation of these words. So what about the next? On many occasions, as a volunteer, the only thing you'll need to do is be a companion, a person for them to talk to. Of course, elderly people enjoy doing things besides, other, more, or addition than talking. Elderly people enjoy doing things than talking. Pay attention to the structure of this sentence. You have the word then. So this word can help you to understand what is missed in this sixth gap. So, of course, elderly people enjoy doing things than talking. So you say other. Let's see. And that is right, of course. So when you use the word other, then after it, you have to use the word then in such a sentence as you have here. Of course, elderly people enjoy doing things other than talking. As many elderly people suffer from poor, worst, loss, or lack eyesight, they often appreciate being read to. So what about the seventh gap? As many elderly people suffer from poor eyesight, worst eyesight, lost eyesight, or lack eyesight. So you say poor. Wonderful. Suffer from poor eyesight. When you have this bad eyesight, you can say like, I have a poor eyesight. If you use the word lack, then after it you have to continue with the preposition of, lack of something, right? So lack of means a shortage. Like you do not have something or it's not enough for you, so you say lack of. And B and C is not appropriate here at all. So that's it. What about the next one? So firstly, let's continue with the next sentence. Or they might enjoy being taken for a stroll in the local park. Whichever program you for, you'll see that being a volunteer is a highly rewarding way for you to spend your summer months. Whichever program you opt for, you choose for, you select for, or you pick for. So you say choose for, right? What about the others? And yes, Mikhaila, you are right about that. Whichever program you opt for, you'll see that being a volunteer is a highly rewarding way for you to spend your summer months. Well done. Here, pay attention to this word for. Like opt, this word has the same meaning as choose. Like opt and choose, they're synonyms. However, the thing is that after the word opt, you can use the preposition for, opt for. And after the word choose, you do not use any prepositions. So choose something, right? But opt for something. So that's the main difference. And after the word select, you also do not use any prepositions like select something and pick. Again, if you use this word as in the basic meaning, in the primary sense, in the primary meaning of this word, so you do not use any prepositions. If you make up the sentence using the phrasal verb like pick up and some other things, so if you use this phrasal verb with a different meaning, of course you can use the prepositions, but it will not have the same meaning as the primary word, right? So here, opt for. It is the synonym to the word choose, but pay attention to the preposition opt for. Well done. So the next task that you have here is to transform the words that you have on the right side into the correct form. So you have here the words like second, benefit, relax, favor, educate, wise, value, mature, or character. Your task now is to transform these words, to make a different form of these words so that it will fit the sentence. So let's read the text, and your task is to, while I'm reading, to write in the chat the answer. So what happens with these words? Like how can you change them for you to make the sentence clear? Taking a gap year. Well, by the way, do you know what's the gap year? So let's read it and you will know. A gap year is a year off between leaving school and going to university. A gap year is a year off between leaving what? Like how this school is called, like second school. In other words, in the correct ones, how it will sound. Secondary. Well done, guys. Gap year is a year off between leaving secondary school and going to university. The next one. Many young people see the gap year as benefit. You transform that because it allows them a short period of after so many years of study. Gap year? No, gap year. We do not have such thing in our language. It's in Ukraine. It's not popular, and in all these USSR country, it's not popular. It's almost in. It is popular in American or in America, for example, in the USA or in Britain or in the European countries. This is the year that you take for yourself just to relax, to hang out with friends, to work somewhere, and you do not go to the university after school while you take this gap year, but you just you spend this year for yourself. So gap year is a year that you spend for yourself, for your relaxation, maybe for thinking about your future. But it's a thing that is not very popular in our country. Well, perhaps it will be popular in a few years, but now it's still not. It's this year off between leaving school and going to university. You just spend it for yourself. So let's see. Many young people see the gap year as beneficial. Right here, as beneficial because it allows them a short period of what? Relax. Like, how can you transform this word into the most obvious one? It allows them for a short period of what? Relaxation. That's right, of relaxation after so many years of study. Parents, on the other hand, do not always view the gap year quite so favor. Transform this word. Parents, on the other hand, do not always view the gap year quite so. So you say favorably. Let's see. So parents, on the other hand, do not always view the gap year quite so favorably. Wonderful. One of the main concerns that their child might waste a year when they could be engaged in more useful educate, you have to transform that, pursues. So, the word educate, how can you make the right form of this word? So you have educational or educative. Let's see. Educational is the right one. Educational pursuits. So, well, pay attention to this word. Educate is the verb, right? Educational, what's that? Is it an adjective, an adverb, a noun? So educational, that means, first of all, it is an adjective. So educational something, right? So in more useful educational pursuits. So here, the right adjective or the word educate is educational for just this type of sentence. Well, Victoria, you're quite right about the word educative, but it is also an adjective, but it is used in a little bit different sentences in a different context. After this lesson, it will be very useful for you to try to open any dictionary, and look for that difference between the word educative and educational. Like the word educate has different meaning when it is used in different forms. Still, it is an adjective. Good. So the next one, some words of for parents who are against their child's short time out Learning requires neither a teacher nor a classroom to be effective. So what about this word, wise? Some words of wisdom. Well done. Yeah, some words of wisdom for parents who are against their child's short time out. Learning requires neither teacher nor classroom to be effective. Traveling the world and encountering new cultures and customs can prove what? Value, transformed it to a young person in search of knowledge. Traveling the world and encountering new cultures and customs can prove to a young person in search of knowledge. So you say valuable. Let's see. Yes, that's it. You can use here both words, invaluable or valuable. Both of them are correct. So traveling the world and encountering new cultures and customs can prove valuable or can prove invaluable to a young person in search of knowledge. So there is no difference in meaning of such words as invaluable or valuable in this case. So both of them are appropriate here. A gap year is a time of great significance in the life of a person. While it offers a brief escape from studying, it can also promote emotional and intellectual growth. A gap year can lead to the development of self-confidence, mature, and independence, which are all character transformed that cannot be taught in any formal classroom setting. So once again, a gap year can lead to the development of self-confidence. You have to transform the word mature so that it fits the context, right? So you can see here the word self-confidence and you have here the word independence. So you enumerate something, right? And you can see that in both of these words you use, like, both of these words are used as nouns, right? So they are used as nouns. Self-confidence, you have this suffix ends, and independence, again ends, suffix ends, and it shows you that you use nouns here, right? So it can lead to the development of self-confidence, like again transform the word mature to a noun, and independence. Well, you say matured? Well, that's not the case here. Like, the suffix ends is quite a popular suffix, and sometimes it is used, like this suffix is put to the adjectives to make the nouns, right? So self-confident, that's an adjective, and if you transform this adjective to a noun, then you use this suffix ends. Self-confident, it becomes confidence. Independent, again that's an adjective, and when you transform that to a noun, then use the suffix ends, like independent, it goes to independence. But the word mature, it's a little bit different one, and use the suffix et here, maturity. So mature becomes maturity. And what about the 24th gap, which are all character that cannot be taught in any formal classroom setting? So the word character, it is a noun, right? Character. And you have to transform that to a little bit different part of speech, right? It's not an adjective, or sorry, it's not a noun anymore. So it's a little bit different. What's that? Which are all what? That cannot be taught in any formal classroom setting. Characteristics, you say? Let's see. That's wonderful. So, gap year can lead to the development of self-confidence, maturity, and independence, which are all characteristics that cannot be taught in any formal classroom setting. Characteristics. So it's not character now, but it has a different meaning. It becomes characteristics. So well done, guys. Thanks a lot for your participation. And for now I will switch to Ukrainian. Ще раз кажу дякую за активність і за участь. Тут ви можете бачити деяку інформацію щодо стосовно уроків. Почитайте і подивіться. Уроки – це 16 занять, онлайн-занять, і вони тривають 90 хвилин. Всю інформацію ви можете бачити на екрані. Якщо маєте якісь запитання, то пишіть зараз в чат, я спробую відповісти. Сподіваюсь, що урок сподобався, і буду сподіватися бачити вас на своїх заняттях, які тривають кожного понеділка і четверга о 18:45. Так як запитання, яких я не бачу, тоді вже буду відключатись. Ще раз дякую за увагу. Thanks a lot for your participation and thanks a lot for being so active during the class. So I hope to see you on my lessons. Goodbye.